my dog Moose, and I am going to talk about gaining weight before you can lose it. I've probably mentioned this in many videos. I'm sure I've talked about it a lot in question and answer videos, but I think this would be a good video to post here in the new year because a lot of people are making resolutions to lose weight and get to their tonest selves and their healthiest selves. And I know that your first thought is, what is the quickest way to do that? Well, I'm going to go to the gym every day or 3 times a week, and I'm going to lower my fat intake maybe, or maybe I'm going to be 0 carb. And you have all these goals that some of them are sustainable and realistic, and some of them might not be realistic for you. And what I want to share is that restricting is never the answer. Unless you're doing a bodybuilding competition where you want to get down to really not sustainable levels of body fat, in which case you lower your calories slowly over time. Unless you're doing that, restriction is not the way. It is not the answer. It is not sustainable. You can only restrict for so long. And when people get stuck in cycles of restricting, which is very common, how many of you guys have done Weight Watchers 5 times? How many of you have done the HCG diet or whatever, just in general restricted, lost the weight, but then it came right back, and then each time it gets harder and harder to lose that weight as it was the first time? Why is that happening? Well, every time you restrict, you down-regulate your hormones, you down-regulate your thyroid. When you lower the amount that you're eating, your body adapts. And this word adapt is something that I use all the time, adapt, because the body is adaptive. It's input and output. So if you start giving your body less and less, it will start putting out less and less, and it will down-regulate its hormones and the thyroid to adapt to that intake. It wants to survive. So it's going to try to be as efficient as possible. And so your thyroid will down-regulate when you lower the amount of food you take in. Your thyroid actually goes down when you lose weight because, again, it's just being more efficient. So those are things to think about. And so restricting is not a long-term solution. And I truly believe that the more you've been stuck in this pattern and the more you go back to it, the less effective it is, because your body starts to figure out like, oh, you're restricting again. I'm just going to start holding on to everything. And so I've worked with so many women especially, unfortunately, who cannot lose weight even at 1,200 calories, 800 calories. I'm talking severely obese cannot lose anything at 800 calories per day. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work. Your body is smarter than this. So how do we break the cycle? Sometimes you have to gain weight before you lose it. So I weighed at one time 69 pounds. That was my lowest recorded weight. I know I was smaller than that, and I will share a before and after photo here. But I was 69 pounds in May of 2019, and I couldn't gain weight to save my life. I was eating copious amounts of food, but I had a chronic CDiff infection that made it impossible to gain weight, truly. When I cut out anti-nutrients from what I was eating, so I went from keto to carnivore, and that switch was huge. It was also a big surrender in meticulously tracking my macros and glucose and needing to be in control. Surrender was really the key. God delivered me. I always say God is healer and meat is medicine. But removing the anti-nutrients allowed me to start absorbing those nutrients from the animal foods that I was eating and gain weight. I gained 4 pounds in the emergency room. My blood sugar stabilized. I felt significant energy and mood improvements within the first 2 weeks of carnivore, which was huge. So I had all of these undeniable signs that this was working. And sure, there were days that I would wake up in pain, or I felt like I did something wrong and I couldn't think of, what did I do wrong? I'm eating the same thing every day. But you just have to stay consistent. After you surrender, you can't really pick up your old chains. I was at the point where it was like, I'm not going back there. I'm not going to try to pick apart every little thing and micromanage. It doesn't work. I had surrendered to God, and I was trusting him, and it worked out because here I am thriving more than ever before, 38 weeks pregnant, and so grateful. Every diagnosis reversed with labs to confirm as well. And that C. diff infection almost took my life. And so I went from 69 pounds all the way up to 155. I gained 65 pounds in the first year, and then I kept gaining weight to the point where my chiropractor was like, hey, you can slow down. You look good. You don't need to keep gaining weight. And I was like, thanks a lot. And I couldn't restrict. I couldn't ignore my hunger signals, and I was more hungry than I knew I needed to eat, if that makes sense. So I had gotten back into tracking my macros just for data, not obsessively. And I was eating way more protein than I needed, but I was craving the protein specifically. And what was so cool is that after eating more protein than I knew I needed, like it was like 200 grams of protein per day, after honoring that hunger, I reversed the hypothyroidism that I had. And the thyroid needs protein. And so I thought that was really, really cool that my body so clearly was sending the signal of what it needed. And I honored that. And so a lot of you out there watching this, you might have a growling tummy right now watching this video. You might be thinking, yeah, I kind of did stop eating way before I wanted to this morning because I want to be able to eat again later, or I didn't earn my food today. I didn't go do my cardio or whatever. You earn your right to eat by existing, okay? We need to thrive. I would say that we all should be aiming to thrive, and you cannot thrive if you are depriving yourself. Sometimes you have to gain weight before you lose it. So I gained all the way up to 155, which felt uncomfortable because I went from 69 pounds to 155. But I will say even that weight gain journey was amazing. Gaining weight without processed foods, seed oils, many carbohydrates. I did not touch carbs for the first 2.5 years at all. My first strawberry slice was at my spring retreat of 2021. So you can gain muscle without carbohydrates. You can be healthy without carbohydrates. You can reverse hypothyroidism, amenorrhea, and all these other issues without carbohydrates. And then I was able to reintroduce them. But my point is that the weight gain journey was comfortable, but when I got up to 155, I kind of felt like, okay, when is it going to stop? And sure enough, it started going backwards again. I changed nothing about honoring my hunger. All I did was I started craving less fatty cuts. So I was eating fatty lamb. And so I cut that back to more goat and veal. And sure enough, my weight started going down, and it just stayed steady at 125 for probably a whole year until Tyler and I got pregnant after we got married. And so I just want to encourage you that sometimes your body needs to gain weight before it can feel safe enough to lose it. That was my story. That's where my body took me, was 155, to finally say, all right, I trust you. And then it started shedding the fat. I had gotten my cycle back. My thyroid is perfect, textbook perfect. And I did that because I honored my body. It wouldn't have happened if I had restricted. So I know it can be scary to gain weight, but I would encourage you to stick with non-processed foods. Focus on nourishing foods, nutrient-dense foods, so that you feel good. Focus on how you feel and less about what you see in the mirror. If you need to take down your full-length mirror so that you're not idolizing or obsessing over that image as much, then I would encourage you to do so. I would also say don't focus on the number on the scale. Focus on the way that your clothes fit and how you feel. If you are taking progress pictures, I think that is far better than the number on the scale, because when you're eating adequate protein and animal foods, you will be maintaining your muscle mass. You could even be gaining muscle, which is heavier than fat. So that number on the scale very often for my clients goes up while their waist goes down, while their pant size goes down. So absolutely be aware that it might not be the number that you wanted to begin with, but it's going to be ideal as long as you're eating the proper foods for your body. I hope that this encourages someone. You have to go deeper. Stop focusing on the quick fix that doesn't last. Focus on health, and the number on the scale will work itself out.